Alrighty, on to our next session. We're here with Steve Grubbs, the co-founder and CEO of VictoryXR. How you doing today?
Doing great, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, wanted to bring you on here. You guys are doing some pretty exciting stuff, specifically in the education space. The purpose of this event is really to understand, some of the use cases that exist in the metaverse. Instead of going down the rabbit hole of defining it to some form of precision, what we want to do is essentially, have you define it for us in using use cases as an example. So tell us a little bit about you, what you're building, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I'm the CEO and founder of VictoryXR. And what we do is we build education in the metaverse, metaversities, that type of thing. And so what that really means is if you think about how higher education and all education generally is moving, remote learning is skyrocketing. So you look at the schools with the greatest growth, it's like Western Governors University online, University of Maryland Global, Purdue Global, Liberty, all these schools that pursue online and remote learning, their growth is very high. But how do you deliver that education right now? It's mostly delivered through like Zoom or some 2D experience, which is fine for some subjects, but for most learning, it requires hands-on kinesthetic learning. And so you've got to find a way to deliver that better. And so what we provide are, for some schools, a digital twin replica of their actual campus. For other schools, they just use our labs. But let's think about some use cases and jump in if you want to clarify anything I say. But think about some use cases. So cadaver labs, for example. You're learning anatomy, maybe you're in health sciences, nursing, whatever the case might be. Very expensive, very difficult to maintain. And, people don't like to provide their bodies to science. So we created one in virtual reality. It's synchronous, meaning all the students can be in there at the same time with their professor. Professor can take your hand, plunge it into the chest, pull out a human heart, hand it around for the students to hold, and then they can expand that heart until it's 10 foot tall, step inside, examine the ventricles, cavities, then you can produce a diseased heart and do the exact same thing and compare the two. So that's one use case that's been very popular. But we also allow students to go on global field trips. So think about learning history, learning D-Day. It's one thing to read about D-Day or even to watch a movie like Saving Private Ryan. It's another thing to be able to stand on the beaches of Normandy and the beaches in England where they took off, departed, and to hear the story while you're looking around, to actually be in a German pillbox. These are the things that really bring learning to life. And what we have found is students love to learn this way.
Yeah, no, that is the D-Day thing. It sounds pretty interesting. Talk about how when you do go to these universities, these education systems, how are they looking at it? Are they looking at it as a kind of a nice to have or a future version? I think there's different campuses out there, universities that have truly embraced digital. Arizona State's been known for kind of the stuff that they're doing there. Just in general, like how are you positioning it, I guess, and how are they adopting it across their entire kind of education system?
Sure. So Morehouse College was the first school to have a full-scale metaversity, and what they understand is this: the Fortnite generation has arrived at college. This generation of students have grown up inside group metaverses. It might be a 2D metaverse like Fortnite, or it might be something similar to that, Roblox, or whatever the case might be. But groups of students get together, they go to entertainment, they learn, they game, they play, whatever the case might be. So it's not a surprise that they have a similar expectation for learning. I mean, they can go and sit in a row of chairs in a class and listen to a lecture. But if you really want to address your enrollment decline, then the better way to do it is to create a way that you're delivering learning and education in a way that students love it. And that's what we find in our surveys at the end of semesters, that students love learning this way. So we position it as this: you have a new generation of students arriving on campus. You need to meet them where they're at, and you need to deliver remote and online learning in a way that's better than what you're doing right now. And that makes sense to a lot of schools because we're signing up new schools every week.
Wow. So, obviously like 20 years ago, it was the laptop, right? And having the experience on a laptop version and the students potentially having it, schools giving them out, in this kind of format, what is the platform of choice, and how are schools thinking about, having their students adopt, whether it's, an Oculus VR headset or some of the other versions of it all?
Well, if you think about the tech stack that makes all of this up, you start with a platform. We have our own proprietary platform. We also use a platform called Engage. and they both have different purposes. On top of that, then you have to have that layer of content that includes 3D models, classrooms. Like we can build whatever classroom we want. So we built a starship for astronomy. We built for paleontology. We built Dinosaur Island. It's cooler to go to class on a million years ago when you're learning about something
Right.
like that than in a brick and mortar class. So you have to have the classrooms, you have to have the 3D models, and then you have to have the professional development. So all of that sits on top of the platform. Then after that, the students have to be able to engage with that content. And that can happen with like a virtual reality headset, maybe one from Meta, the Quest 2, or Vive. HP's got a really high-end version, Lenovo, Pico. They all have good headsets that can be used for this. Or you can access it through a 2D computer. It's sort of like if you think about playing Call of Duty on a computer. It's a 3D world, but you're able to interact with it through a computer. So it's the same thing with these Metaversity campuses. So that's sort of how the tech stack works up. We like to see schools provide students a headset to either check it out or for the students to own it, because it's a richer experience than accessing it through a PC. But some schools don't necessarily go that route.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Potentially, obviously, because of the cost and use cases, at least up to today. How do you see? I guess there's clear use cases, like you said, for different courses and subjects, where it's really around, in some cases, using your hands, right? And or looking, there's different dimensions in some of the different subjects that you just talked about, whether it's astronomy or biology or anything like that, where what you're studying isn't necessarily just simple math. How do you see kind of VR, AR as it relates to a broad spectrum of the curriculum across subjects? Meaning, you have a couple different subject matter that there's definite use case versus some maybe not so much. What's like your vision of merging all this together, and the hybrid kind of environment that we're talking about in terms of how schools adopt it? And maybe again, you use a specific school as an example, how they're using it, across their entire university in general. So anything you have around that.
Yeah, let me give a specific use case, then I'll go talk about Morehouse College, how they have deployed it. So, To Kill a Mockingbird is a book that most students read in high school, and so you're not going to sit in virtual reality and read a book, but most people are familiar with either the movie or the book. And so, what if, as you're discussing this book, what if you go into the courtroom from To Kill a Mockingbird? And some students sit on the floor level, some sit up in the balcony, just as it occurs in the book. Some sit in the jury box, one student sits in the judge's seat, and then you have the lawyers, and you have a discussion from the perspective of of a scene in the book. We can do the same thing with all of the top literature. So even in use cases that people don't think about, literature or reading, there's some really good use cases. So Morehouse College, they taught their first semester, they taught world history and or inorganic chemistry, as well as biology. So, for example, on the week that they taught World War II, the students took that class while on a battleship in the Pacific Ocean. And the professor was United States Navy retired. So when class was nearing an end, he took them on a tour of the battleship and explained what all those different things that you always see on battleships do. So that's a way to make history come alive. In inorganic chemistry, where they deal a lot with molecules, the students were able to, hold a molecule in their hand, break it apart, put it back together, and better understand it. Because molecules are a lot more complex than most people realize. It's not just like H2O. They might have hundreds of atoms potentially.
Sure.
Biology 105, they took a field trip through a fallopian tube. That didn't happen very often.
Yeah. So the outcomes, is there any studies, research that you guys have accumulated or have seen in the ecosystem that kind of can translate this type of method and potential outcomes? It sounds like it would, at least for me personally. I know if I was on a field on a ship somewhere learning history, I think I would have been a little bit better at history. But anything that you can share on kind of outcome generation.
Absolutely. If you look at world history at Morehouse College, the same professor taught the same course in a brick and mortar classroom with lecture, and then through Zoom, and then on the Metaversity campus. And at the end of each of those semesters, they measured three things. They measured student engagement, student achievement, and student satisfaction. On all three measurements, the Metaversity came in head and shoulders above the other two options. And it was a significant improvement in all three. So what we know is, at least in this one small comparative study, that students love it. they're more likely to attend class, and they get better grades.
So yeah, so win-win-win. It sounds like. How are, again, and share what you want in terms of the sale here. Again, we're an investment firm, so we always try to understand the financial outcomes, also the outcomes that you just shared, which is the value being created to the students in this specific area. But then how are they thinking about this in terms of budget? Is this again experiential, or is this something again that they're leaning into and they're continue year after year allocate, whether it's a little bit more budget or a lot more budget as they continue to see kind of use cases like you just shared?
Yeah, I'll talk about that, but I also want to hit on the growth. A year ago at this time, we had 2 metaversities. Today, we have 40. By the end of this year, just 7 weeks from now, I think we'll have 50 to 55. So we're signing them up right and left. We don't call anybody. We just take incoming calls and then discuss the options. So that's been extremely helpful. And the reason they do it is, first of all, if you land a student, and if you think about it, tuition is going to be 20 to 30,000 a year at most institutions, right? 4 years of a student is $80 to $120,000 of tuition. So if they invest $100 per semester in a headset, and then a license is $100 a semester, so $200 that's per semester. That's less than my law school books cost.
Sure.
So it's not a big investment, but the potential to land new students is significant.
Got it. No, that makes sense. So let's talk about the ecosystem. Obviously you talked about the different types of headsets. I think the developer ecosystem, specifically around Oculus or Meta Quest, has been enormous, and you've kind of seen that exponential growth over the last couple of years. The whole ecosystem has benefited. You go to the other headsets. Just can you counterbalance maybe your views on the different ecosystems? Maybe whatever's the strength and weakness that you see, at least as of right now.
Yeah. So first of all, we were sort of in the middle of this VHS versus Betamax debate. Now, you might not know that reference, but back in the early days of VCRs, there were 2 competing systems. Ultimately, VHS won. We're looking at a similar thing with AR and VR. I think that both will succeed, but Apple's betting heavy on AR, and we expect for them to really come out with some strong AR products probably in 2023. Meta has bet heavy on VR, but their latest headset also has pass-through for AR. So even though AR and VR is a little bit jargony, the bottom line is that you're going to have 2 metaverses out there. One where you're fully in, and the second where you walk around with your glasses on. There's this entire invisible world all around you that you don't see. You tap the glasses, and suddenly the invisible world becomes visible. It might be for wayfinding. It might be for fun things to do. It might be cryptocurrency that's on the sidewalk that you can put in your wallet. So all of this is happening. We're building it all. We were the first to launch metaversities. We'll launch our AR metaversity sometime next year. And so it really matters how that rolls out and who the partners are.
Yeah, super exciting. General view on the Oculus or Meta Pro headset that they just came out with?
Yeah, ours is on its way, but the friends I have in the industry who have used it, they love it. And here's what it does for us. We've got this great cadaver lab that the universities love. But when you've got it on, you are separated from everybody else, which is no big deal if you're in your apartment or your dorm room. But if you're all sitting around a table together, then what you really want is the AR pass-through that comes from the Meta Quest Pro. So we can all sit around this table in our classroom, and we can see each other, we can talk to each other, but then in front of us is this human body. And that allows us to engage with anatomy and physiology and all of those things while still being aware of all the people around us. So we really love that about the Pro.
Nice. Man, you've given us quite a bit of use case and tangible evidence of what's happening here. For everyone, we've kind of given 3 questions. Would love to hear them from you. First, baseball game 1 through 9. What inning do you think we are in terms of the concept of the metaverse?
I'd say second inning.
Okay, yeah, that's pretty right around there. I think first to third is kind of your general views, even for people that are in the industry deep, such as yourself. Number 2 is really, it could be your project, but any project that you've seen out there that kind of gave you the aha moment, something that you think is exciting out there today. Anything you want to share about a project out there that kind of has excited you or excites you today for the future?
Yeah, there's a bunch of them, but Alan Smithson's Metaverse Mall, I think, could be a game changer as people begin shopping in the metaverse. And then I really like the avatar system that Ready Player Me has set up. We're using that in our VXR labs. And then, what we're rolling out with health sciences, our emergency room and our hospital room for nursing and med techs, that's going to be a game changer because we're desperately in need of more healthcare professionals, and we can't get enough trained, can't get enough practicum. So this is going to open it up for hospital systems and universities.
You gotta keep going on that one. So what's exactly the value there that you think is being created?
So if you think about the problem, we don't have enough nurse techs, med techs, nursing assistants. And so to ask someone to come to a campus is a challenge because most of these people have another job. If they can attend a campus at home and they can learn kinesthetically, they can turn the knobs on a machine, they can attach the devices to the patient, and they can do it all from their home in the evening and get all that practical hands-on learning with a live instructor. That completely changes the paradigm. And once it does that, it's going to open up a lot more students, and they can also actually get their practicum in, which they need to be able to become certified to work in a hospital.
Fascinating. The last one is, the concept of the metaverse. Is it overhyped, underhyped, or perfectly hyped relative to, some of the buzz out there?
Underhyped. The narrative that we're getting today, all due to Meta's stock price, or most of it due to Meta's stock price, is that the metaverse isn't working, it's not going anywhere, people don't like it, they don't use it. This is just not true. The bottom line is that it's going to happen. It's going to be big. We are all going to engage with it at one level or another. And it just reminds me of the early days of the mobile phone when the 50-year-olds saw the 18-year-olds all running around with their heads in their phones. And they said, and now everybody's like that. So adoption will occur, and you have to be patient. This is challenging technology, but it's game-changing technology.
Impressive. Yeah. I'll leave it there. If people want to find out more about what you guys are doing, where should they go? We have a lot of investors or areas that follow us for ed tech in general, but just in general, like where should people look to find more about what you guys are doing?
So to learn more about the company, VictoryXR.com. Yeah, our YouTube channel has over 200 videos. We're in the middle of our Series A. We're trying to close that out by the end of the year. And anyone can just email me at steve@VictoryXR.com or hit me up on LinkedIn.
Awesome. Steve Grubbs, appreciate you coming on. Congrats on everything. And I hope the rest of the year is a good one.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean.